Well, hello and welcome to PM Express. And today I am the bearer of bad news or bearer of sad news. Why? Well, HIV is now on the rise again. Once upon a time, we did our best to really reduce it, even though the message then was a bit horrific and it stigmatized people who had HIV. It was quite dangerous. It was about, you see posters with crossbones and death, and even the reportage was not in the right taste. And therefore we developed a bad stigma for people who'd suffered HIV. But somehow we were able to manage that and bring it down to a barest minimum. But today it's on the rise again. Why? Well, because the donors who were bringing the money for us to do the education and concern ourselves with our HIV are probably stopped. And just like us with our shameful sense of entitlement, we seem to think that, we can just be here and everything else is somebody's fault. We litter and we expect somebody to give us money to pick up our litter. We give birth and expect people to look after our children. And here we are today faced with this shameful, embarrassing situation where once upon a time a disease that we were almost stamped it down to the bottom became a pride of all nations that, oh, look at Ghana, they're doing well. We are back up there again with really embarrassing situations, and all because we refuse to basically own up for our own sins or be responsible for the things we do. So until some foreign donor has some spare bonus to come and chip it down here, what do we do in the meantime? I think it's gotten to the time where you and I and our government sit and say, look, this is here, it's our fault, let's own up, let's face up to it, let's push money into it and get it done. But can it be done? That's why we are here talking. My name is Nana Ansakwal IV, Chief of the Little Republic of Akwemu Edumasa. When I come here, we are trying to find out if for once we will own up to our own responsibilities and stem this tide before it becomes too late. Don't go. Dr. Stephen Ayisi Ado is my guest, and he's the head of the National AIDS Control Program, NSDI Control Program of the Ghana Health Services. And I hope that within this hour, somewhere in between, we will find a way in which we will accept our blame, our faults, and solve our own problems rather than looking elsewhere. Doc, thank you so much.
Thanks also for having me. Yeah. I'm sure it's been a long day.
It has.
But it's important. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for the opportunity.
Great. This is what I call for God and country.
Yeah.
But Doc, I'll just ask, how did we get here again?
Okay, I think, it's always difficult for a country with low prevalence. Complacency sets in a lot. People even now are no more seeing the pictures we used to see, the very gory pictures, people who are wasted and all that. And since the advent of medication, which has contributed significantly to where we are, now, people are better off, people are fine, even where people are HIV positive and people want to engage them in some sexual activity, they even tell them I'm HIV positive, they brush it aside. It's part of the problem, the complacency. Everybody doesn't see people who are in trouble like that physically. So we all think that it's no more. Now, as you painted the picture rightly, the declining resources has also contributed. But it's not just for its sake, because, everybody wants to look at the impact. Where there's limited resources, you need to prioritize. So at the point where now we were trying to enroll people on treatment, and based on the evidence that treatment is also preventive. If you had some amount of resources He needed to push it in the mass media campaigns and all that compared to putting people on treatment. He needed to prioritize. All right, so our focus shifted to making sure that these lifelong, life-saving medications were available to people who were living with HIV. All right, so it kind of shifted the emphasis. But it was not to say that the prevention component was no more important. Now, it's also because, as you said, since it was partners who were giving a lot of the money, once they started reducing the money, that mentality and attitude of Ghana, people thinking that everything must be free, has also caught up with us. I think the only thing that will change it is the fact that we've been forced into accepting, whether we like it or not, that we are lower middle income. So even current funding is conditional to government also contributing. So though the picture looks gloomy, whether we like it or not, somehow we're being forced to rise up to the occasion. And so as I will be reflecting, the current support is linked to a condition for counterpart funding from the government. And hopefully with time, there is a plan to transition a lot of the responsibility to government. This year, for instance, almost all the test kits will be procured by the government. This is a major shift from last 2 years, where a lot of the test kits were from the Global Fund to fight AIDS, TB, and malaria. When it comes to antiretroviral therapy, there is an MOU with the PEPFAR. PEPFAR support is going to be a one-off support for about 57,000 clients on treatment. After that, that whole cohort has to be taken over by government. So it also means that government is also now going to do its part. The Global Fund has provided resources for medications and other things between this January this year to 2020 December. That money government is supposed to match with a 15%, 20% funding. So all in all, for the core areas, there is going to be some government contribution. But there is an unfunded aspect of the response. And that is where we need to tackle. And whether we like it or not, that we must mobilize domestic resources to be able to bridge that gap, because the partners will not fund that area. And we're talking about the prevention, education, the prevention aspect and all that. We need to reactivate the campaigns. We've come through a cycle. Young people today were children when we started. Now they are grown and they don't really seem to be aware of some of the basic things. Condom utilization has reduced significantly, and we need to also show it up again in terms of the education for people to use it and all that. We have to do all these things while addressing the related factors. HIV has some associated factors apart from the direct biological factors. The socioeconomic situation is a contributing factor. HIV follows the roots of commerce. So if you look at our prevalence, you notice that it's becoming strongly urbanized. The urban prevalence is twice the rural. You find now Greater Accra and Ashanti, highest population, now leading with 3.2%. Whilst for a period, you've noticed that in the northern regions, it's been low, relatively. If you take the rural areas, it's also been low. Okay, so if you take the highest prevalence site, which is Obuasi, historically we know mining activity, a lot of sex work, in those areas. So it all contributes. The use of substances is rather more prevalent in the cities, so Greater Accra and then Ashanti region. It's in these cities that you will find slum areas. You find people who are here for different things, spotters and everybody. They are not in any organized way, so they are predisposed to all the things, the violence, sexual violence, all the potential use of substances that will have influenced your ability to maintain a safe behavior and all that. So all these are things, and we need to tackle that. But if we cannot find separate resources, as in I'm hoping, hopefully with the AIDS fund coming up stream, if it's operationalized, then we will get some resources to tackle those aspects. But if not possible, everybody must play a certain role through a certain existing opportunity. The gender ministry and all other ministries, because this is a multi-sectoral thing, must make some resources available to be able to tackle HIV, targeting some particular population group. We have to work with workplaces. The workplace programs must be reignited. It's gone down significantly. We're gone are the days where the military, the police, the service, fire service and all that, they had very vibrant HIV prevention programs. And so we need to reorganize ourselves, get all these institutions to really allocate some resources for the response, so that not everything will be directly provided by government.
Dr. Lee, because media is very expensive. Because of the nature of it, because it's HIV, I don't know if you've tried maybe partnering with the big houses, let's say multimedia, multimedia, please give us 20 minutes or 30 minutes a week where we slot in these adverts once a day, and then all the other big boys to see if, because of the nature, they may say, well, we won't charge you money, but we'll do it.
I've tested it. I've not been on set. This is not the first time.
Okay.
And I always repeat it, that they should give us that opportunity. It can be monthly, or quarterly. But let's not wait till we release new figures. And then we have to come and respond. If they can do that for us, that will be fine. I'll be very happy if you are assuring me by this statement. Because we are aware that in the past, people also really embraced the idea that they were being paid to air some of these, campaigns and adverts and all that. And it doesn't come very naturally when you want to do it, free of charge. But I'll be very glad to partner multimedia, any institution, media institution. We have a well thought out plan monthly, and we keep this, top of the mind awareness of us as far as HIV is concerned. I'm sure we'll kill it, we'll push it, because where we are, 1.67 is still below 2%. And naturally, if you test in 100 people, you get only 2. If you round it up, 1.7. It means you need to do more work, extremely more work, because you can't compare with countries that are prevalent even in the 30s and all that. So we still need to do extra effort, and we need to do some basic thing acceptable throughout the year and the years ahead. And we'll be very, very happy if the media can partner. This is something we can do without expecting any resources from anywhere, and it's doable, it's possible. All right, so I am hoping that that partnership, we should somehow kind of re-establish that partnership. It was there in the past, but it was there based on the assumption that they're working through the Ghana AIDS Commission, some money will by all means be paid, And this is the case where I notice every day, even by the law, people are not supposed to be even talking about STI when they are not trained. Herbalists sit on, set, and they are prescribing medications for STIs. The laws, is against it. For people are, laying claim to cures is not acceptable. But we're really struggling because it's the media that gives them the opportunity. You will not be given the same opportunity. But when you talk, they say that's where they make their bottom line. All right, so it's a dicey thing. And if the media can take it as a corporate social responsibility, we will welcome it very seriously, because a lot of the other component is also significant in terms of money. The government has to pay the workers, invest in infrastructure, facilities and all that is significant before now matching with commodities. Not only the treatment, but when you put people on treatment, you need to monitor them. So all the laboratory things, And this is happening at a time where, having been declared as a lower middle income, we are being transitioned in all areas. not only HIV, but also for vaccines. So if it's a government who has to provide money for vaccines and HIV commodities, there's always that dilemma, and you need to all of a sudden rise to this responsibility of making sure that you cater for every area. It's a positive thing for the president to declare a nation beyond aid, and we cannot do otherwise. We have to work towards it. But it will come with, it will bite us. And I think we need to also bite the bullet so that we get this over once and for all. Because I think it's even a security threat to leave HIV management and care in the hands of partners. Because after all these efforts, with the rising infection, what can happen in future is that we may have a double epidemic. The first is the rebound of the first, of general epidemic. The second will be the development of drug resistance. Because when you cannot be able to sustain medication, because maybe with time you don't have enough, and people they stop non-adherence, they will develop resistant strains. The virus typically changes its form. So can easily mutate, and then it will be resistant to any medication. That is one aspect we should prevent altogether. If we push ourselves to that level, then we'll have to deal with drug resistance, which will be worse. TB is struggling now for multi-drug resistant tuberculosis. It's very dangerous. We shouldn't go there as far as HIV is concerned, because HIV, you don't leave. There's no cure. So I think this is the time that we take control of our own epidemic and not let it be subject to the help somebody provides, because it's a national security threat to me. And if we've all declared 1990 to end the epidemic by 2030, but to enroll a huge number of people and ensure suppression by 90, it's a good thing. It's a momentum with support. But we need to, at a point, take full control of that and then sustain it. Then we can say that indeed, as a matured nation, we have been able to manage our epidemic.
What's the highest, what's the worst we ever got to?
We've been to about even 4% before.
Wow.
Oh yes, about 6%. We've been there. In fact, what we are noticing now among pregnant women in fact, we had about 4 cycles of that, where it went very high, dropped twice, went high again, and it looks like it's a 3-cycle period. But the positive thing is that if you do a trend analysis, it's on a declining trend, because all the peaks from the first are lower than the previous peaks. So the last peak we noticed was 2.4%. That was in 2016, and it's dropped to 2.1. However, the overall prevalence for the country, because that is among pregnant women, the 2.1 is among pregnant women, the overall prevalence increased a little from 1.61 to 1.67. In fact, in the past, you will notice a kind of correlation between the ANC prevalence and the national prevalence. When the ANC prevalence drops, you expect a drop in the national prevalence. But it was not so this time because of the effect of antiretroviral therapy. Many more people are living now with HIV. So the likelihood that, despite the fact that the drug can suppress the virus, the likelihood that they can live, they will transmit to other people is also high. Now when we talk about prevalence, it includes those who were already positive, existing, plus the new infection. So the numbers will increase because HIV is ensuring survival. That in itself affects the rate of decline. Because once people are alive, they are still harboring the virus. It may be undetectable, but it's hiding. And there can be a rebound, they can still transmit. So that is why we're noticing this increase. And we, at this time, getting closer to epidemic control, will be more interested in the new infections. Because as for those who already have it, they will have it. And they must live, because that's why we're giving them medication. Life expectancy has improved with ART, antiretroviral therapy. Our recent mortality analysis indicates that ART has averted a lot of deaths, which is positive. So people under normal circumstances should have the same life expectancy like the non-HIV people. And they should be able to die from other causes. So one of the things we are looking at is even some of the non-communicable diseases like hypertension and diabetes among people living with HIV. That we can't do anything about, because they have to live. But what we need to work hard at is to prevent people from joining the bucket, new infections.
Okay, I'm going to take
because we got about 19,000 new infections.
I'm going to take a quick break, and when I come back, I want to find out with regards to the use of condoms. Because I remember once upon a time they used to give it out for free. Is it because they don't give it out for free anymore, or is it that we really don't, we're not scared of it, so we don't even if it's free, we don't want to use it? What's the issue with the usage? Don't go, we're coming back. Well, as I said today, I was bearer of bad news, shameful news, embarrassing news. A nation that once upon a time fought in so many campaigns, so many educations to reduce infections, new infections of HIV, somehow sat back, complacency, neglect, and we are now rising back up. But Doc, somewhere in the conversation you were saying that the usage of condoms had gone down. I remember they used to give, then they used to give condoms for free. Is it that they're not giving the condoms anymore, or people just don't want to use it?
Okay, so we still, if you go to health facilities, it's been delivered through the family planning system, and it's just for the fee. It's almost negligible, because I think we need to also get above these free things. People don't take it serious. I mean, it's less than 50 pesos for a pack of 3. But you'll be surprised that people.
Okay. Doc, I hear my viewers saying if you speak up a little bit.
Okay, so but you notice that people will go and buy the Rough Rider and all the other flavored ones, and things like that.
High cost.
It's higher cost, But what is provided, the no logo, be safe and all that, very, very cheap. Okay, but the other issue is that we need to also, for the ones we provide for outreaches, it's free. And some of these NGOs come for it and they give it out free. All right. But for some time now, the distribution has been affected by programming. Because we're not doing outreach testing, a lot of it. We used to do a lot of outreach testing, know your status campaign. So as part of the package for testing and all that, you promote condoms. That is not happening now, all right, which we need to go back to. And that's what was one of the opportunities to distribute the condoms. We need to take advantage of festivals and occasions now. And as I mentioned earlier, the workplace programs. We're gone are the days where in most workplaces, in the washroom, you may have condoms and all that. Okay, so we need to go back. But I think in the last year, we've had challenges with the condom supply itself. And we're hoping that the pipeline should be better. Towards the middle of this year, June is close to us. The issue about condoms, people patronize the male condom, but not the female. Female condom utilization is very low. But we know it's very useful even for the sex workers and all that, because that is supposed to empower the female. You use it yourself. And it doesn't depend on the male, to use it. Okay, so generally...
Is it cumbersome? Why is it not being used?
Well, I mean, most of the females have said, they've given all kinds of reasons why they don't use it. It makes noise, and when you wear it, it's supposed to be there for even a lot of hours, 8 hours if you have intentions, but for some reason, they even sometimes prefer the male, and they're rather using it for fashion, using the rings for different things. Okay, so we must also look at the manufacturing. I mean, if it's not comfortable for them, they will not be forced to use it. The other thing is that within the context of family planning, people, the service providers have to change the messaging. You know, they promote one family planning method, okay, against the other. Like if they ask you to choose Depo-Provera or Copper T or something, they don't add condoms. Condoms must be added by all means for the purpose of preventing sexually transmitted infections. So that is one of the things we are revisiting in terms of the messaging. All right. The utilization among the youth also is a challenge. It's reduced significantly. And we are hoping that, you know, one of the biggest challenges, I mean, is dealing with the schools. Parents will not be happy and they will not allow condoms to be promoted in schools, because the idea is that if you do that, you are encouraging sexual activities. But we know they are engaged in all of these already, so it's better to teach them so that if anybody
how are we going to
finds...
fix this thing where it's happening, but then they say, look, don't take it there, because if you take it there, then you're promoting. It's like, well, let them do it without you. I don't know. How are we going to solve that communication?
As a program, we think that let's give education to everybody. Let's give them, let's teach them. But it's not automatic that everybody who knows that if you use a gun, you can kill somebody will necessarily use it. Okay, so I think that it's better, because there are a few people who, under normal circumstances, will use it anyway if you don't teach them or not. And the fact that you educate people doesn't mean that they will usually, you know, engage in that behavior. So if you check the people who come to obstetrics and gynecology to attempt abortions, the church members are there, different denominations. You know, so that was the same argument that don't bring this education here because you're coming to, it's not good, it's not God, you know. But the same people come with all these complications that we need to deal with. So teach them and prevent infection. And if possible, if you need to cater for their soul spiritually, it's better to take care of them when without infection than with infection. Okay, so teaching doesn't mean that by all means, you know, they'll use it. And we have to continue to advocate, talk to our parents, our teachers to help us. But at least the prevention education through the school health program has to be reignited.
Doc, let's look at the segments of society that, I mean, I know you touched on it, but you just sort of brushed on it, but which aspect of society is the disease growing more?
Okay, so if you compare the general population prevalence and what we call the key populations are groups that are considered to be at higher risk of HIV transmission because of behavior. And in Ghana, we've identified men who have sex with men, in whom prevalence is 18.1. It increased from 17 to 18.1. Female sex workers. It dropped from 11 to 6, but 6 is still high compared to 1.7 in the general population. And the men who inject drugs, we've not established the prevalence amongst them because we are now doing the size estimation of people who inject drugs. You know. Now the interesting thing is that these groups have partners who are in the general population. So sex workers, for instance, have what we call non-paying partners. They are 6%, but they have non-paying partners who they can give to. They are part of the general population. Men who have sex with men, they have about 50% of this recent study are bisexuals. So if they are 18%, they will give it to females who will then also be in the general population. So they constitute what we call the bridging population. We must isolate them for targeted interventions, and we're doing that. At least an average of a sex worker or a man who has sex with another man is targeted for prevention activities, let's say about 3 times the general population, because you need to increase the number of tests, because condom use is also low amongst them. And we're even supporting them with lubricants for condom use, because the likelihood of injuries and therefore transmission is very high when you have anal sex. Okay, so these are some of the segments, and that is contributing to that. But apart from that, there are also groups that are considered as risk groups. They are vulnerable groups. the pregnant women, the children, even health workers. We also realize that long-distance drivers may be at some level of risk, and people in incarcerated circumstances, like in prisons, and all that, they can be vulnerable. So there are specific programs towards to help them. But if you check Ghana's situation, largely the general population, if 98% are negative, we should keep them negative. So we need to continue to provide information, prevention education, so that people will stay negative at least.
Doc, realistically, how much, would you need to do a proper campaign and, distribute condoms? I mean, to run a facility like this, realistically, how much would the state pumping in?
But you're looking at the whole country. I mean,
Yeah.
A lot goes into it. If you have to mobilize the service providers, provide food, and all of that, the national response is huge. In fact, if you are combining everything together with treatment and all that, it's not be less than about 250 million
A year.
US dollars. Oh, a year, not less than about 100 million.
Okay.
Okay, because the money we have for 3 years for the current number of people on treatment, about 46 million, but that doesn't include the payment of salary and all those things. But if you add all that, you're going to about 350,
Wow.
million thereabout. So it's huge. Now, everybody can contribute in a simple way. If it's about transportation to the community, if it's about food, but then the test kits are available. So the test kits will be made available through our procurement system. And NGOs can also be trained to also do the test. We've developed what we call the tax sharing guidelines. And the tax sharing guidelines will make it possible for even lay people to participate in testing.
Okay.
All right, so that, you can, even if you are trained, you also participate in testing. And we've started some pilots on self-testing also, so that people can self-test and then report themselves for further care.
Wow. And funny, how much are you short? How short are you? Very short, I guess.
Yeah, but I think positively this year, so far, with all that we have in terms of the commodities in the pipeline, it's good. We should be able to, what we need now is the energies of people. So we've launched the 90-90-90, which says that 90% of people living with HIV. The last estimate put it at 313,000. The 90% of that must know their status. That includes all the people in the community who don't know their status. And when you pick that 90, at least 90% of that must be put on treatment.
Now, coming back to treatment, because the times that you hear that, you don't get any medication shortage, and
for a while you've not heard.
No, for a while I haven't heard though.
Okay.
For a while I haven't heard.
Which means the pipeline has improved significantly.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was all to prepare us for this 1990. And that's what I mentioned. PEPFAR, Global Fund, provided money, and then PEPFAR, the US.
Look, let me take my final break, and then I want to find out, how does one qualify? How many days do you get? Do you have to pay for the treatment? Where do you go for it? Let's get a bit more education on that. So don't go away. Well, thank you very much for staying. Let me catch up with some of the comments you put on Facebook. Then I come in and get some more education from Doc. This is from Ifa Emmanuel Jabba. Says, since abstinence can't work, then condom must be educative and be cheap in the country. Karina Ed says, not to meet a woman the first day and want to have. To have sex, but then what happens the second day? Will she be healed in the second day? In Qatar, NS says abstain from sex, if not get protection. Moro Husseini, intensive education for the youth on causes and prevention. Kofi Ekre says let people have Okay, it's gone. Let me go to Herbert Susu. He says nothing can be done because they always do it raw. Kalan Stefan, this is 1, public education, 2, sex education of the youth, 3, promotion of use of barrier methods of contraception. And then we have Simpak Nix's nationwide test on HIV. Then we kill. TJ says majority of these people affected by the disease are the youth. The way forward is abstinence. Wisdom. Afono says there should be holiday for sex. Nana Safo, look for its cure and stop this disturbances. Let me come to studio. Doc, with the antiretroviral, what's the protocol?
Okay, so antiretroviral therapy is free in Ghana.
No, I won't pay once.
You're not supposed to pay. When we encourage everyone to have health insurance, because treating HIV is not only about the virus, but treating other conditions as a result of the infection. All right, so if you can have HIV and have what they call it, hypertension, or have malaria, or have a chest infection. I mean, if you have health insurance, you can be taken care of.
Does HIV bring a particular disease?
So HIV predisposes to what we call the opportunistic infections, because the virus suppresses your immunity.
System. Okay.
And the immune system, once it goes down, now all kinds of infection can come in. You get some infections more frequently, pneumonias. You get some rashes, you get tuberculosis. You can develop what we call candidiasis, esophageal infections, and many different diarrhea, you lose weight, anemia. Okay, so these related health conditions must also be managed. All right, and in the context of having the protection to insurance, it's easier to manage. But when it comes to the medication, it's free. In fact, some years ago, they were paying 5 cedis service fee, but we've scrapped that. All right. Now, once you are tested and you are positive, the protocol is that you have to be now initiated on treatment. This is very different from the previous situation. Just about 2 years ago, you have to qualify to take the medication by 2 criteria, eligibility criteria. WHO clinical stage, they will look at your symptoms, and if you are very sick, then you will be qualified to take it. And then we do a test called the CD4. We check your white cells, and if it's below a certain level, we will give you preference first. But now, because of the new initiative to treat all, we've removed all those conditions. So all that is needed is for you to be confirmed as indeed positive, and then you be initiated on treatment after adherence counseling. This you can benefit from this from about 76 sites in the whole country, in all the 216. No, in 216 districts. It's everywhere. Greater Accra alone, Kolebu, Mamprobi, Ridge, Tema General Hospital, La General Hospital. I mean, private facilities like Odona, West Africa AIDS Foundation, or IACC, even Yahoo, Holy Trinity. I mean, so it's everywhere now, most places, and we intend to even shift it further to many more places in the countryside and in different places, private facilities as well. So it's available. You're not supposed to be charged for it. And once you go through adherence counseling, it's necessary. Adherence is necessary because this you're going to take for life. And because of the tendency for people to default, because sometimes they get tired, we need to provide you with adherence support to emphasize why when you start you shouldn't stop, because the medication, if you stop, resistance will develop, the virus will become stronger and all that. Okay, so we need to do this, and that is why we're facing competition with the herbalists, competition from also some prayer camps. In fact, we have initiated some programs with some prayer camps to educate the pastors. Because we had 1 or 2 even who will quietly come for medication, but go and pray for people. Healing people. So
that's a very important point there.
Yes. So we need to make sure that we educate them, and we have some of them realize the harm they were causing. Because some of it is out of ignorance.
The pastors will sneak in for their medication, and they'll go and say.
And there were one or two who seized the medication. They want to pray for you, but they needed it to take. Okay, so we have to continue the education, even with them, to be partners with us and not to compete, because it's not anti-God taking medications. It's not an exercise of faith, abandoning even your malaria. If you have malaria, you don't go and pray for healing. It's confirmed you take anti-malaria. If you're hungry, you eat. So in the same way with HIV, it looks strange. So everything that looks strange, people take advantage of it. So the prophets and all that will lay healing, claim to healing and all that. So we need to also provide orientation for them. And we visited some of these prayer camps. It's so sad that people who are on treatment sometimes abandon their medication and they go to these prayer camps and they get worse, they deteriorate, and by the time they return, it's too late to help them. Some of them even die in some of these camps, and it's not acceptable today where treatment is available and you can get it not even for. Now what we're doing is that for stable clients, those who don't have side effects or anything, we give you a long, for let's say 3 months or 6 months, so you don't have to be coming frequently, and we just only monitor you, all right? So this is the opportunity, and unfortunately some people set it aside, go and take some herbal stuff. They even pay more, they pay for it, because naturally also, because there's still stigma, people want quick fixes. They want easy ways out. So if somebody says, I have a cure here, they rush. And we are even aware that some people are mixing the medications, orthodox medication, with their herbal medications and declare it as, cure. We cannot, we have to be sincere. The medication is very potent, antiretroviral therapy, to suppress the virus as long as you are taking it. But it's not a cure. We can also promote it that is a cure. Yeah. Okay. Right. And once you do that, we are also ensuring that you have suppression. So we monitor you.
Before we end, I mean, we don't hear of AIDS as much. Now we hear HIV, but first it was AIDS. So I mean, what's happening?
It's a treatment that has done the trick. Because now, as people take the medicines, they are free of the AIDS symptoms, because the AIDS is the consequence of having the virus. Okay. And those were the days where even if you had HIV, you had to wait till a certain time before you start the medication. So some people even came in late and they would die. They're hiding their rooms and all that. But because now initiation is faster, nobody with time should come with AIDS symptoms. We catch you when you even have good immunity. You may have just gotten the infection, and we start you with medication. That itself has contributed to the complacency, as I said, because you don't see people who are wasted, who are running. But we also know that there are people who look healthy, but they may be at end stage. And some people are working very low CD4 counts. Their immune status is low. And suddenly they die, and what a shock, some of these things. Sometimes you see a young person who develops a stroke. It may not be a stroke, it may be one of the opportunistic infections, which presents like a stroke. All right, so indeed, that is what has even been the game changer. And that is why we want to intensify the enrollment of people onto treatment.
Doc, is our blessing become a curse? What I mean is that, those days when we used to see the skeletons and everything, we all used to panic, and therefore we were scared. Now that the education, we've learned to understand that, look, if somebody has HIV, don't neglect them. Or is that also becoming, a bad side to it? Well, then if I don't know,
yes and no, because it's all about every good thing may be associated with a challenge, and we can also move away from the truth. This is science, and we cannot continue to create fear and panic amongst the people. in trying to be positive, these are some of the challenges. But we are saying that don't be complacent, because if you stop, you don't take your medication, you can also suffer the consequence, like someone who is hypertensive does not take his medication, he will develop a stroke and die. He will develop a heart attack and die. So in the same way, though we are saying it's no more a death sentence, it's positive, come forward, let's treat you. You need to also be responsible when you are on treatment. So that is what you are saying. The positive aspect is that we come very far. We've reduced stigma. It's not a positive living with HIV is a reality now.
Now, if there's somebody watching and thinking, look, tomorrow I need I need a test, or I need to go and get medicine, or what do they do? How do they go about it?
Any public facility, in fact, in Accra and Kumasi and most of the cities, we have all the regional hospitals have it. For starters, if you don't want to go there, if you get in touch with the National AIDS Control Program, we have a list of all the facilities in all the regions, and you can access it anywhere. You can walk in and request to have a test. Now, we're doing routine offer of testing. Anybody who comes to the hospital, we want to give you the opportunity to know your status, with the assurance that you can immediately be linked to treatment. So it's not a difficult thing at all. You can get the service anywhere. And if there is any hit, you can draw attention to it. We will facilitate your getting these services. Even as far as Agro is very far, northern region, Garutin, Pani, most of the places they have HIV, they have treatment.
And there's medicine.
There's service, and there's medicine available. There's medicine in the system. And
what is it, 1 tablet a day, 2 tablets a day?
Good. So one of the things that is positive is that we've moved from when we used to have a cocktail of many medications to fixed dose combination, where you have one which has a 3. And we started this with the pregnant women because they have a lot to take. So that worked. And now the current regimen we have is just a single dose, fixed dose. You take just once a day. Maximum it will be twice, but once you do that, that is also to help with adherence.
And for those who have a watch, it has to be in a precise time.
Yeah, we as much as possible. If you are supposed to take it 12 hourly, this one you need to do well with the 12 hours.
Not Ghana man time.
But I tell you, the Ghanaian has a sense of intelligence, and even the rural areas, people are taking it well, and they're getting suppressed. So it's possible, and we can do it. Plus or minus 1 hour Ghana.
Well, so I think we'll urge all schools, all workplaces, all churches, mosques, because they have the large numbers, to start some sort of education there, yes, with them, and then gradually, if we the media also get kind, then we do the mass education. But we need to get down to the barest minimum. 024-366-2001. That's not for the antiretroviral tablets. No, that's for Tanti's Fashions. Yeah, that's for Tanti's Fashions. They make my shirts for the show. 024-366-2001. Give them a call. But I want to say big thank you to Dr. Stephen Aisiado, head of the National AIDS and STI Control Program, Ghana Health Service. Doc, you're welcome.
Thanks a lot, Nana.
Great to have you on the show.
For the opportunity.
We'll be back to do this all over again, and thank you very much for watching.